I am Zoe, 32 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought my brother Nathan and I shared an unbreakable bond. We survived losing our parents together, built new lives, and promised to always protect each other. Then he met Julia. Something about her perfect smile never quite reached her eyes. I never imagined she would leave me hospitalized with broken bones while my own brother texted me to stay away. Before I tell you how my nightmare turned our sibling bond to ashes, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you want to hear more real-life stories like this one. Our story began 16 years ago when our parents died in a car accident. Nathan was only 16 and I was 24. In an instant, I became his legal guardian, shouldering responsibilities I never expected to face so young. The weight of being both sister and parent crashed down on me, but I never hesitated. Nathan needed me, and that was all that mattered. I still remember the day I received my acceptance letter for a prestigious graduate program with a full scholarship. It was everything I had worked toward, but it would have meant moving across the country. That same evening, Nathan had a breakdown, sobbing about losing mom and dad. I held him as he cried, and by morning my decision was made. I declined the scholarship and found a job at a local financial firm instead. Some sacrifices don't feel like sacrifices when they are for someone you love unconditionally. Our bond grew stronger through those difficult years. We developed rituals that kept us connected. Sunday morning pancakes became sacred. We would talk about everything while mixing batter and flipping those perfect golden circles. Nathan would add chocolate chips to his while I preferred blueberries. These seemingly small moments built the foundation of our relationship. During those pancake breakfasts, we shared our fears, dreams, and secrets. We promised to always have each other's backs no matter what life threw our way. I watched with immense pride as Nathan blossomed despite our tragedy. He graduated with honors from high school, earned a scholarship to a prestigious university, and eventually secured a position at a respected engineering firm. At his graduation ceremony, he thanked me in his speech, calling me his rock and saying he would not be standing there without my sacrifices. The crowd applauded, but they could never understand how those words filled every empty space grief had carved inside me. Even after Nathan moved into his own apartment across town, we maintained our close connection. Tuesday dinners became our new tradition. Sometimes we would try new restaurants, other times we would cook together at my place. During one such dinner, Nathan mentioned he had met someone at work. Her name was Julia. The way his eyes lit up when he spoke about her made me instantly happy for him. After everything he had been through, he deserved to find love. 3 weeks later, Nathan asked if he could bring Julia to our next dinner. I spent the entire day cleaning my apartment and preparing a special meal. I wanted everything to be perfect for this woman who had captured my brother's heart. When they arrived, my first impression of Julia was that she seemed flawless, perhaps too flawless. She had shiny auburn hair that fell in perfect waves, impeccable makeup, and a designer outfit that looked straight off a runway. Her smile was dazzling but never quite reached her eyes. Throughout dinner, I noticed how Julia placed her hand possessively on Nathan's arm whenever I mentioned our shared memories. When I brought up the pancake tradition, she cut in, saying, "That sounds so childish." Nathan and I do brunch at the Riverview now. They have the most amazing mimosas. The dismissive tone made me pause, but I brushed it aside. As they were leaving, Julia hugged me a bit too tightly and whispered, "Nathan talks about you constantly. It must be nice having him worship the ground you walk on." Her tone was light, but her eyes held something cold. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but told myself I was overreacting. Later that night, Nathan called to ask what I thought of Julia. I focused on the positive things, mentioning her confidence and how she seemed ambitious. I kept my unease to myself. After all, first meetings can be awkward, and I wanted to give her a fair chance. Nathan sounded relieved and thanked me for making the evening special. As we hung up, I silently hoped my instincts were wrong about the territorial gleam I had seen in Julia's eyes when she looked at me across the dinner table. The final moments of that evening replayed in my mind as I tried to fall asleep. Julia had taken a photo of Nathan and me together, insisting we pose with our arms around each other. "Your sister is so pretty, Nathan," she had said, her voice syrupy sweet. "You two look so much alike." But as she lowered the phone, I caught a flash of something in her expression. Something that looked remarkably like jealousy, quickly masked by another perfect smile. The changes began gradually, so subtle I almost missed them. Nathan started canceling our Tuesday dinners. First, it was a work emergency. Then he caught a cold. The third time, he texted last minute saying Julia had surprised him with concert tickets. I understood life gets busy when you start a new relationship, so I suggested we move our dinners to once every 2 weeks instead. One rainy Friday evening, I decided to treat myself to dinner at Giovanni's, an Italian restaurant Nathan and I both loved. As I followed the hostess to my table, I froze. Sitting in a corner booth were Nathan and Julia laughing over wine. Nathan had canceled our lunch that same day, claiming he was home with a fever. Our eyes met across the restaurant. Shock registered on his face, quickly followed by guilt. Julia noticed his expression and turned around. When she saw me, she smiled and waved enthusiastically, beckoning me over as if nothing was wrong. "What a coincidence," she exclaimed as I approached their table. Nathan was feeling so much better after taking some medicine, so I insisted we get out of the apartment. He has been moping around all day. She squeezed his hand while giving me a look that dared me to contradict her. Nathan could barely meet my eyes. "I was going to call you Zoe. The medicine kicked in about an hour ago, and Julia thought some fresh air would help." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without revealing how hurt I felt. I made an excuse about meeting a friend and quickly retreated to my table. Throughout my meal, I felt their eyes on me. When I glanced over once, I caught Julia whispering something in Nathan's ear while staring directly at me. He frowned in response. The following week, I met Adam, one of Nathan's oldest friends, for coffee. We had known each other since college, and he had always been like a brother to me too. His expression was troubled as he stirred his latte. "Have you noticed anything different about Nathan lately?" he asked carefully. I admitted I had. Adam then shared that Nathan had missed their basketball game for the third time in a row. When I called him about it, Julia answered his phone. She said he was in the shower and then proceeded to question me about who I was and why I was calling so late. "It was 7 in the evening, Zoe." Adam hesitated before continuing. "Last weekend, a few of us got together and Nathan actually showed up. But he kept checking his phone every 5 minutes. When I asked if everything was okay, he said, 'Julia likes to know where he is at all times.' He tried to laugh it off, but it seemed off, you know." A knot formed in my stomach as Adam continued. Apparently, Julia had started going through Nathan's phone regularly. She had deleted several female contacts from his phone, including colleagues he needed for work. Nathan had laughed this off too, calling it just Julia being Julia. The Nathan I knew would never tolerate such behavior. He valued his independence and had ended a previous relationship when the girl became too possessive. This new compliant version of my brother worried me deeply. The changes in Nathan himself became impossible to ignore. My outgoing, confident brother now second-guessed himself constantly. During one of our rare dinners together, he changed his order 3 times, muttering that Julia usually ordered for him. When I asked about his promotion at work, he glanced down and said it didn't work out. Later, his colleague told me Nathan had withdrawn his application after Julia suggested he wasn't ready for that level of responsibility. Then came the subtle digs about me. Julia would make comments like, "Zoe, you always have such interesting outfit choices. I admire how you just wear whatever feels comfortable rather than worrying about fashion." Or, "Nathan tells me you practically raised him. It must be hard letting go now that he has me to take care of him." Each comment delivered with a sweet smile that never reached her eyes. Despite all this, nothing prepared me for the bombshell Nathan dropped just 6 months into their relationship. He called me, excitement bubbling in his voice, to announce that he and Julia were engaged. My heart sank, but I forced enthusiasm into my voice as I congratulated him. "We want to buy a house together," he continued. "But we need a guarantor for the mortgage since Julia has some credit issues from her divorce. Would you be willing to co-sign for us? It would mean everything to me, Zoe." Every instinct screamed at me to refuse. Becoming a guarantor would make me legally responsible if they defaulted on payments. Given Julia's mysterious credit issues and the rapid pace of their relationship, this felt like a disaster waiting to happen. But the hope in Nathan's voice melted my resistance. He had never asked me for anything substantial before, always insistent on making his own way. "Can I think about it?" I asked, trying to buy time. "Of course," he replied, though I detected disappointment. "Julia thought you might hesitate. She said it might be too much responsibility for you right now." The manipulation was obvious but effective. By the end of the week, I had agreed to be their guarantor. I told myself I was doing it for Nathan, but deep down I knew part of me wanted to prove Julia wrong about my commitment to my brother. As I signed the preliminary paperwork, I wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The engagement celebration dinner was held at an upscale restaurant Julia selected. She had arranged for a private dining room, decorated with photographs chronicling her relationship with Nathan. I noticed something peculiar in almost every photo Julia was positioned, between Nathan and whoever else appeared in the image, including me. It seemed symbolic of how she had physically and emotionally inserted herself between us. During dinner, Julia dominated the conversation, frequently interrupting Nathan and contradicting his stories. "Oh, honey, that is not how it happened," she would say with a laugh. "You always get the details wrong." Each time, Nathan would falter, then defer to her version of events. The situation deteriorated when Julia began discussing Nathan's childhood. "Nathan was such a mess before me," she announced to the table. "His apartment looked like a tornado hit it. He ate takeout every night and his fashion sense was non-existent." She patted his hand condescendingly. "Thank goodness I came along to civilize him." I watched my accomplished, independent brother shrink beside her. When I mentioned how Nathan had always been incredibly organized growing up, maintaining perfect grades despite our parents' death, Julia fixed me with a cold stare. "That was a long time ago, Zoe," she said icily. "People change. You just have not seen the real Nathan like I have." She turned to him. "Tell her, babe. Tell her how much you needed guidance before me." To my dismay, Nathan nodded. "Julia has really helped me get my life together," he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. When Julia excused herself to take a phone call, I seized the opportunity to speak with Nathan alone. "Are you really happy?" I asked gently. "This relationship seems to be moving incredibly fast." His defensive reaction caught me off guard. "Just because you are still single does not mean everyone needs to take things slowly," he snapped. "Julia loves me. She wants what is best for me." "Even the best relationships need healthy boundaries," I suggested carefully. "Some of her behavior seems controlling." Nathan's face hardened. "You have always done this. Anytime I find happiness, you find fault. Julia warned me you might be jealous because you do not have what we have." His words stung like a physical slap. Before I could respond, Julia returned immediately, sensing the tension. She slipped her arm through Nathan's possessively. "What did she say about me?" she asked him, not even pretending I was not sitting right there. The evening ended with strained politeness, but the damage was done. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. "Is this Zoe?" a female voice asked. "My name is Amanda. I used to work with Julia at Meridian Associates." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "How did you get my number?" "From a mutual friend who is worried about your brother," she explained. "Listen, I would not normally do this, but I feel obligated to warn you. Julia has a pattern. She finds successful people with strong family connections, isolates them, and then takes over their lives. Her last boyfriend filed a restraining order after they broke up. She became violent when he tried to end things." My blood ran cold. "Violent how?" Amanda's voice lowered. She trashed his apartment and slashed his tires. Then she started showing up at his workplace, creating scenes. But the police reports mysteriously disappeared after she began dating a lawyer in the district attorney's office. That relationship ended badly too. After hanging up, I sat in my parked car for nearly an hour trying to process this information. Could Amanda be exaggerating or holding a personal grudge I needed to investigate further before approaching Nathan again? The next day, Julia showed up at my office unannounced. My assistant looked uncomfortable as she led her in whispering. She insisted it was an emergency. Julia settled into the chair across from my desk, crossing her legs elegantly. "I wanted to clear the air after last night," she began, her voice syrupy sweet. "I know you care about Nathan. I care about him too." "I am glad to hear that," I replied carefully. Her smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. "That is why I need you to back off a little. Your constant presence is making it difficult for us to build our life together. Nathan feels obligated to you because of your shared history, but he needs space to create new memories with me, his future wife." She emphasized the last three words like a threat. When I did not immediately respond, she leaned forward. I would hate for him to have to choose between us, Zoe, because we both know who would lose. Her perfectly manicured nail tapped my desk rhythmically. By the way, that mortgage guarantee is really important to us. The paperwork needs to be finalized by next Friday. After she left, I spent my lunch break researching Julia Morgan. What I discovered confirmed Amanda's warnings and revealed even more concerning information. Julia had been engaged twice before meeting Nathan, both relationships ending abruptly under suspicious circumstances. One former fiancé had moved across the country shortly after breaking things off. The other had deleted all social media accounts and seemingly disappeared. I compiled everything I found into a carefully worded email to Nathan, focusing on verifiable facts rather than speculation. I concluded with a heartfelt plea: I am not trying to ruin your happiness. I am trying to protect you from potential harm. Please just consider whether this relationship truly makes you happy or if you are walking on eggshells trying to please someone who is never satisfied. His response came at 3 a.m, clearly written in anger. He accused me of fabricating lies, of trying to sabotage the first real love he had found. The most painful line read: Julia was right about you all along. You cannot stand to see me happy with someone else because then you cannot control me anymore. Stay out of our business. Despite this devastating response, I received an invitation to Nathan's bachelor party weekend. It was being organized by his friend Adam, who called to personally ensure I would attend. Nathan needs people who truly care about him right now, Adam said quietly, even if he does not realize it. I agreed to go, seeing it as possibly my last chance to reach Nathan before he legally bound himself to Julia. The bachelor party was held at a lakeside cabin owned by Adam's family about 2 hours outside the city. Traditionally, bachelor parties exclude fiancés, but Julia had insisted on coming along to the guys' weekend, claiming she wanted to organize a special surprise for Nathan. Nobody had the courage to object, least of all my brother. The first day passed without incident. We went fishing, grilled the catch for dinner, and shared beers around a bonfire. Julia remained glued to Nathan's side, interjecting whenever conversations turned to shared memories or inside jokes. That sounds like a silly tradition, she would say, or Nathan has outgrown those childish things. During dinner, Julia made a toast that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. To Nathan finding his perfect match, she said, glass raised, and to leaving behind childish relationships that were holding him back. Her eyes locked with mine across the table. Adam nudged me under the table, a silent reminder to stay calm. I forced a smile and raised my glass, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Later that evening, Nathan slipped away to take a phone call. Julia immediately engaged the group in a game of Never Have I Ever, deliberately choosing topics that painted me in a negative light. Never have I ever been so clingy that I called someone every day, she said, smirking, when I reluctantly took a sip, knowing everyone was aware of how close Nathan and I had been after our parents died. Around midnight, I spotted Nathan sitting alone on the dock, staring at the moonlit lake. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to speak with him privately. I grabbed my jacket and quietly made my way outside. Beautiful night, I said, sitting beside him. He glanced at me, then back at the water. Yeah. Remember when Dad used to take us night fishing? You were always afraid of the dark until he told you the stars were nightlights hung by angels. A small smile tugged at his lips. I had forgotten about that. Encouraged by this glimpse of the old Nathan, I gently broached my concerns. I am worried about you, I admitted. You do not seem like yourself anymore. You used to be so confident, so independent. Julia just wants what is best for me, he replied automatically. Does she? Because from where I am sitting, it looks like she wants to isolate you from everyone who cares about you. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots of police reports I had managed to obtain, along with social media posts from Julia's ex's friends, alluding to her controlling and abusive behavior. Nathan stared at the evidence for a long time. Why would she do this? He finally whispered, sounding like the vulnerable 16-year-old boy I had once consoled after nightmares. Some people need to control others to feel secure, I explained gently. It is not about love, Nathan. It is about power. For the first time in months, I saw doubt cross his face. He looked back toward the cabin, then at me. I need to think, he said. But Zoe, Thank you for not giving up on me. That small moment of breakthrough was shattered by a scream that still echoes in my nightmares. What the hell is this? Julia stood at the end of the dock, Nathan's phone clutched in her hand. She must have seen him slip away and followed, arriving just in time to witness our conversation. She stormed toward us, face contorted with rage. I knew you would try something like this, she spat at me, filling his head with lies, trying to turn him against me. Julia, calm down. Nathan stood, raising his hands placatingly. We were just talking. Just talking, she shrieked, thrusting his phone in his face. Then why are there screenshots about me on your phone? Why are you investigating me behind my back? Nathan looked trapped between us, his newfound clarity already wavering under her fury. I just wanted to understand. Understand what? That your sister is a manipulative bitch who cannot stand to see you happy. She turned her venomous gaze on me. You have been trying to sabotage us from day one. You probably made up all this evidence. I stood my ground. Everything I showed Nathan is verifiable. Your ex filed a police report after you vandalized his car. Your former employer has a record of you being fired for harassment. Something dangerous flashed in Julia's eyes. She lunged forward, shoving me hard. I stumbled backward, the edge of the dock catching my heel. I felt myself falling, arms windmilling helplessly before hitting the water with a splash. The shock of cold momentarily paralyzed me. When I surfaced gasping, I heard Nathan shouting, Julia, stop. What are you doing? I swam to the ladder and pulled myself up, water streaming from my clothes. Julia stood blocking my path back to solid ground, her face a mask of pure hatred. Nathan moved to help me, but Julia grabbed his arm. Choose right now, she demanded. Her or me? Nathan froze, visibly torn. That moment of hesitation was all Julia needed. She released him and turned back to me. You have ruined everything, she hissed. What happened next occurred so quickly, I still struggled to piece it together in sequence. Julia grabbed a heavy flashlight from the dock post and swung it at me. I raised my arm defensively, feeling a sickening crack as the metal connected with my forearm. Pain exploded through me, but adrenaline kept me moving. I ducked past her, trying to reach the cabin where others could intervene. Julia pursued me, grabbing my hair from behind and yanking me backward. I lost my balance at the bottom of the cabin's wooden stairs, falling hard. As I tried to scramble away, she kicked me repeatedly in the side. Each impact sent waves of agony through my body. I heard shouts as the others finally noticed the commotion and came running. Adam was the first to reach us, pulling Julia away as she continued to scream obscenities. I lay on the ground, each breath sending stabbing pain through my ribcage. Nathan stood frozen several feet away, his face a mask of horror and indecision. Call an ambulance, Adam shouted to the others. He knelt beside me, his expression grim as he assessed my injuries. Nathan, I gasped, reaching toward my brother with my uninjured arm. For a moment he moved toward me, his face crumpling with concern and guilt. Then Julia broke free from the friend restraining her. If you go to her now, we are done, she threatened, her voice deadly calm, despite the madness in her eyes. I watched my brother's face, saw the exact moment he surrendered to her control. He took a step back, then another. Julia immediately latched onto his arm, whispering intensely in his ear. His eyes never left mine, filled with torment but increasingly distant. The paramedics arrived 20 minutes later. By then, Nathan and Julia had disappeared into their room. The medical assessment was grim. 3 cracked ribs, a broken wrist severe, bruising across my torso and back, and a mild concussion from hitting my head during the fall. In the emergency room, as doctors set my wrist and wrapped my ribs, I checked my phone one-handed. There was a single text message from Nathan that shattered what remained of my heart. Stay away from us. You have always been jealous of my happiness. We do not need your drama in our lives. The physical pain of my injuries paled in comparison to the emotional wound those words inflicted. After everything we had been through together, after all the sacrifices he had chosen her, more than that, he had stood by while she physically attacked me, then blamed me for the violence she inflicted. As the nurse administered pain medication, I felt tears streaming silently down my face. She patted my shoulder sympathetically. Family troubles, she asked gently. I nodded, unable to explain that I had just lost the only family I had left. The first week after the attack was the darkest period of my life. I returned home to an empty apartment filled with photographs and memories of a brother who no longer existed. Simple tasks became monumental challenges with my injuries. Showering, dressing, even preparing a simple meal required painstaking effort and triggered waves of pain. Nights were the worst. Lying awake, I replayed the attack in my mind, searching for what I could have done differently. Should I have never confronted Nathan? Should I have been more aggressive in exposing Julia earlier? The questions circled endlessly, providing no answers or comfort. During this dark period, Adam checked on me regularly, bringing groceries and helping with household tasks. Nathan has been asking about you, he admitted during one visit, when Julia's not around. I felt a flicker of hope that extinguished instantly when Adam continued. But he is still going ahead with the wedding plans and the house purchase. As if summoned by this conversation, my phone chimed with a text from Nathan. The bank needs your final signature on the mortgage guarantee papers by Friday. Can you come to the bank at 2 p.m.? Julia wants to move forward with the closing. No apology, no acknowledgement of my injuries or his role in the attack. Just a demand for me to fulfill my financial obligation to them after everything that had happened. It was the wake-up call I needed. I stared at the message, something shifting inside me. The fog of grief and betrayal began to clear, replaced by a cold clarity. Nathan had made his choice. Now I would make mine. Done, I texted back, letting him believe I would complete the paperwork. That single word marked a turning point. I was done being manipulated, done sacrificing for someone who would stand by while I was attacked, done enabling a relationship that was destroying the brother I loved. The next morning, I called in sick to work and made 3 appointments with my doctor, a lawyer, and the police. The doctor documented my injuries thoroughly, taking additional photographs for the record and writing a detailed report. The police officer who took my statement was sympathetic but cautious. Domestic cases can be complicated, she explained, especially when the primary witness is unwilling to corroborate. I have other witnesses, I assured her, friends who saw the attack. Adam had already agreed to provide a statement along with 2 others who had witnessed parts of the assault. The lawyer specialized in both personal injury and financial matters. After reviewing my case, she outlined several immediate steps. First, filing for a restraining order against Julia. Second, formally withdrawing my guarantee for the mortgage before the final papers were signed. You have every legal right to withdraw your consent, given the circumstances, she assured me. The assault creates clear grounds, especially since it occurred before the final paperwork was executed. She drafted a formal letter to the bank, explaining my decision and including the police report number and medical documentation. We will send this by courier today to ensure it reaches them before Friday's meeting. As I left her office, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. For so long, I had defined myself through my responsibility to Nathan. Now I was choosing myself, my safety, and my financial security over his poor decisions. It hurt, but it also felt necessary. That evening, I received a call from a support group for victims of domestic violence. The police officer had referred me to their services. The counselor who spoke with me explained that what I had experienced was a form of family violence. Often abusers not only target their partners, but also attempt to sever important relationships in their victims' lives, she explained. Your brother is being abused too, just in less visible ways. I had never thought of Nathan as a victim, but her words resonated with what I had observed. Julia's control, isolation tactics, and emotional manipulation were forms of abuse. This realization did not excuse Nathan's betrayal, but helped me understand it in a new context. The support group invited me to attend their next meeting. Even if you do not want to share your story, just hearing others can help you feel less alone, the counselor suggested. 2 days later, the bank called to confirm they had received my withdrawal notification and supporting documentation. The mortgage application has been flagged for review, the loan officer informed me. Given the circumstances, it will almost certainly be denied without another guarantor. I had barely hung up when my phone exploded with calls and texts from Nathan. I let them go to voicemail, listening later with a mixture of sadness and resolve. His messages started with confusion, quickly escalated to anger, then deteriorated into desperate pleading. Julia is freaking out, he said in the final message. We have already put down a non-refundable deposit on the house. You cannot do this to us, Zoe. Please call me back. I did not call him back. Instead, I texted, I will not discuss this without my lawyer present. Contact her office to arrange a meeting. Later that evening, Adam called to warn me that Nathan and Julia had been driving past my apartment building. They parked across the street for about 20 minutes, he reported. I thought you should know. I thanked him and immediately called the police officer handling my case to report the potential violation of the temporary restraining order that had been granted while the permanent one was being processed. She dispatched a patrol car and advised me to document any further incidents. As I hung up, I felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time since the attack, I was not reacting from a place of hurt or fear. I was taking deliberate actions to protect myself. The sister who would have done anything for Nathan still existed, but she now recognized that true love does not require becoming a doormat or enabler. Through a mutual friend, I learned that Julia had prior arrests for domestic violence that had been expunged through a first-time offender program. This information strengthened my resolve and my legal case. I added it to the growing file of evidence my lawyer was collecting. With each step I took to protect myself, I felt stronger. The weight of responsibility for Nathan's happiness gradually lifted from my shoulders. I had spent so long being his protector that I had forgotten a fundamental truth: adults must ultimately make their own choices and live with the consequences. The preliminary hearing for the assault charges against Julia was scheduled 6 weeks after the attack. By then, my physical injuries were healing, though my ribs still ached when I laughed or coughed. My emotional recovery remained a work in progress, but the support group had become an unexpected lifeline. Hearing other survivors share their stories helped me understand I was not alone in my experience of betrayal and violence. The courthouse was an imposing building with marble columns and heavy wooden doors that seemed designed to intimidate. My lawyer met me at the entrance, reviewing our strategy one last time. Remember, stay calm no matter what Julia or her attorney says, she advised. The medical evidence and witness statements are strong. Let them speak for themselves. Walking into the courtroom, I immediately spotted Nathan sitting behind Julia at the defendant's table. He looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, his expression unreadable. Julia, by contrast, had transformed her appearance completely. Gone was the fashionable, polished woman I knew. In her place sat someone dressed conservatively, in a simple blue dress, hair pulled back in a modest bun, wearing minimal makeup. The visual manipulation was obvious but effective. She looked nothing like the enraged woman who had attacked me. Her attorney presented her as a victim of my unhealthy obsession with my brother. Miss Morgan reacted in self-defense when Zoe Williams became aggressive after being asked to respect boundaries, he claimed. This case is nothing more than a vindictive attempt to damage my client's relationship. When my turn came to testify, I focused on stating facts clearly without emotional embellishment. I described the history of Julia's controlling behavior, the conversation with Nathan on the dock, and the unprovoked attack that followed. As I spoke, I noticed Nathan shifting uncomfortably, his eyes fixed on the floor. The prosecutor presented the medical evidence next. Large photographs of my injuries appeared on screens throughout the courtroom. Bruises in vivid purples and yellows spread across my ribcage, my wrist at an unnatural angle, the cut on my forehead from hitting the stairs. A collective murmur ran through the courtroom. Adam's testimony proved particularly damaging to Julia's defense. He described pulling her off me as she continued to kick me and quoted her exact words, "I will kill that bitch if she tries to take him from me." Throughout the proceedings, I watched Nathan. Each piece of evidence seemed to hit him physically. He flinched at the photographs, closed his eyes during Adam's testimony. When Julia turned to whisper something to him, I saw him pull away slightly, the first sign of resistance I had witnessed. After 3 hours of testimony, the judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for the case to proceed to trial. Julia was released on bail with a strict order to stay at least 100 feet away from me at all times. As we exited the courthouse, reporters clustered on the steps called out questions. Julia pushed through them without comment, Nathan trailing behind her. I was about to follow my lawyer to her car when I heard a commotion. Turning back, I saw Julia confronting one of the reporters who had asked about her previous domestic violence arrest. "You know nothing about me," she screamed, grabbing at the reporter's microphone. "This is all her fault. She has ruined everything." The outburst was captured by multiple news cameras, undoing in 30 seconds all the careful image crafting her attorney had orchestrated. Nathan tried to pull her away, his face a mask of embarrassment and growing awareness. That evening, a local news station ran the courthouse footage alongside an interview with Julia's previous ex-boyfriend, who had finally come forward after seeing the case in the news. He described a pattern of behavior identical to what Nathan had experienced: isolation from friends and family, monitoring of communications, explosive anger when challenged. 3 days after the hearing, I received notification that the mortgage application had been formally declined. The bank cited my withdrawal as guarantor and the pending criminal case as factors in their decision. Nathan and Julia had lost their non-refundable deposit of $15,000. The same day, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Zoe. Nathan's voice sounded strange, smaller somehow. I remained silent, unsure what to say after everything that had happened. He began, then paused. "Can we meet somewhere public? Just to talk." My instinct was to refuse, but something in his tone made me reconsider. "Where is Julia?" I asked cautiously. "She does not know I am calling you." There was a new firmness in his voice I had not heard in months. "I need to see you alone, please." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop equidistant between our apartments. I arrived early, selecting a table with a clear view of the entrance and exits. My lawyer had advised against meeting Nathan without her present, but this felt like something I needed to do on my own. When Nathan walked in, I barely recognized him. In the 2 months since the attack, he had lost weight, and his usually neat appearance had grown disheveled. He slid into the chair across from me, hands wrapped around his coffee cup as if seeking warmth. "I am sorry," he said immediately, the words tumbling out. "I am so sorry, Zoe, for everything, for not believing you, for not stopping her, for that text message." His voice broke on the last words. I had imagined this moment so many times, crafting the perfect cutting response that would make him feel the depth of my pain. But faced with his genuine remorse, those prepared speeches evaporated. "Why did you choose her?" I asked instead, the question that had haunted me for weeks. Nathan stared into his untouched coffee. It happened so gradually I did not notice until it was too late. She would get so upset if I disagreed with her, then so loving when I did what she wanted. It became easier to just go along. He looked up, his eyes haunted. "That night at the cabin when she attacked you, something broke inside me, but I was too scared and confused to act." And now I prompted when he fell silent. "We fought after the hearing. She blamed me for not defending her better. Said if I had been more convincing, the judge would have thrown out the case." He took a shaky breath. "She threw a glass at my head. It missed, but it was like I suddenly saw everything clearly. All the manipulation, the isolation, the control, everything you tried to tell me." "Have you left her?" I asked. He nodded. "Yesterday, I packed what I could while she was at a meeting with her lawyer. I am staying with Adam until I figure things out." He hesitated. "She has been calling non-stop, alternating between threats and apologies." I recognize the pattern from my support group discussions. "That is what abusers do," I said gently. "They cycle between violence, remorse, and promises to change." "I kept thinking about what Dad used to tell us," Nathan said, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. "A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. I made the mistake of dismissing your concerns once. I refuse to make that decision again." We talked for nearly 3 hours until the baristas began wiping down tables around us. Nathan shared more details about his relationship with Julia, each revelation confirming that he too had been a victim of her abuse. The Julia I had seen was only a fraction of who she truly was behind closed doors. "What happens now?" I asked as we finally prepared to leave. "I have given a full statement to the police supporting your account of the attack," he replied. "My therapist thinks it will be months before I really process everything." "You are seeing a therapist?" I could not hide my surprise. He nodded. "Started last week," Adam insisted. He looked at me directly for the first time. "I do not expect you to forgive me, Zoe. I would not forgive me. But I need you to know how sorry I am and that I am trying to fix what I can." As we parted ways, he hesitated, then asked, "Do you think we could talk again sometime?" I did not have an easy answer. The bond between us had been severely damaged, perhaps beyond repair. But standing there seeing glimpses of the brother I had loved my whole life, I found myself unwilling to close the door completely. "Maybe," I said, "one day at a time." In the months that followed, Julia's case proceeded through the legal system. With both my testimony and Nathan's, along with the medical evidence and witness statements, she was found guilty of assault and battery. The judge sentenced her to 18 months probation, mandatory anger management classes, and made the restraining order permanent. Nathan and I began the slow process of rebuilding our relationship. We started with occasional text messages, progressed to weekly coffee meetings, and eventually resumed our Sunday brunches, though the easy closeness we once shared remained elusive. My professional life took an unexpected positive turn during this period. My boss had been impressed by how I handled the crisis while maintaining my work performance. When a senior position opened up, she recommended me. "You have demonstrated extraordinary resilience and judgment under pressure," she told me during the promotion interview. "Those are qualities we need in leadership." As winter turned to spring, I found myself having dinner with Michael, a man I had met through my support group. He was not a victim himself, but volunteered as an advocate after his sister had experienced partner violence. Unlike previous relationships where I had rushed in with my whole heart, I moved forward cautiously, establishing clear boundaries from the beginning. "I understand the need for space," Michael assured me when I explained my hesitation. "Healing has its own timeline." 6 months after the attack, Nathan invited me to meet him at our parents' favorite park. We walked along the familiar paths where we had scattered their ashes years before. "Julia was not the first controlling relationship I have been in," he admitted as we sat on a bench overlooking the lake. "Looking back, I can see patterns in all my serious relationships. My therapist thinks it stems from losing mom and dad so young. I seek out partners who make decisions for me, who take control so I do not have to." His self-awareness surprised me. The Nathan who had fallen under Julia's spell would never have been capable of such insight. "I am taking a break from dating," he continued, "focusing on rebuilding the friendships I neglected and figuring out who I am outside of relationships." As we continued walking, he mentioned he had been approved for a small apartment lease. "No guarantor needed," he added with a self-deprecating smile, though the security deposit was pretty steep given my recent credit history. It was the first time we had directly referenced the mortgage situation. I realized with some surprise that I no longer felt angry about it. The financial entanglement we had narrowly avoided seemed like a small issue compared to the emotional journey we had both navigated since. "You will rebuild your credit," I said simply, "one step at a time." 1 year has passed since the night Julia attacked me on that lakeside dock. The physical reminders have faded. My ribs no longer ache when the weather changes. The small scar on my forehead is barely visible unless you know exactly where to look. My wrist sometimes bothers me after a long day of typing, but even that discomfort is becoming less frequent. The emotional healing has been a longer, more complex journey. In the immediate aftermath, I struggled with anxiety and hypervigilance. Unexpected noises would make me flinch. Crowded places felt overwhelming. Sleep came fitfully interrupted by nightmares that replayed the attack with even more horrific outcomes. My support group became an essential part of my recovery. Sitting in a circle of strangers who understood without explanation provided comfort I could not find elsewhere. We shared strategies for coping with triggers, celebrated small victories, and held space for setbacks without judgment. Writing became another powerful tool for healing. Each night, I recorded my thoughts in a journal, tracking my progress, and acknowledging my feelings without censorship. Some entries were angry rants that stretched for pages. Others were brief notes of gratitude for another day survived. Over time, the balance shifted from predominantly negative emotions to a more nuanced mix of experiences. The relationship between Nathan and me has been slowly rebuilding brick by careful brick. We started with structured time-limited interactions in public places. As trust gradually returned, we expanded to more meaningful connections. Last month, we resumed our Sunday pancake tradition for the first time since before he met Julia. As he flipped blueberry pancakes, my favorite Nathan reflected on what he had learned through therapy. "I have a pattern of falling into toxic relationships," he admitted. I mistake control for care, jealousy for passion. My therapist helped me see how losing mom and dad made me vulnerable to people who offered certainty, even if that certainty came with a heavy price. His self-awareness impressed me. The Nathan who had fallen under Julia's spell would never have been capable of such insight. This new version of my brother took responsibility for his choices, while recognizing the factors that influenced them. 3 months ago, I began speaking at domestic violence awareness events, sharing my experience as both a direct victim and the family member of someone in an abusive relationship. The first time I told my story publicly, my voice shook so badly I could barely get the words out. By the third presentation, I found strength in transforming my pain into education that might help others. Last week, Nathan attended one of these events, sitting quietly in the back row. Afterward, he hugged me with tears in his eyes. "I am so proud of who you have become through all this," he said. "Not despite what happened, but because of how you responded to it." That moment marked a significant shift in our healing journey. For so long, I had been the proud one, the protector, the guide. Now we were finding a more balanced relationship based on mutual respect rather than dependence. The most profound lesson I have learned through this experience is about boundaries. For years, I defined love as endless sacrifice and unwavering support. I believed that true devotion meant never saying no, never putting my needs first. The attack and its aftermath forced me to reconsider this definition. I now understand that healthy love requires healthy limits. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to stop enabling destructive patterns. By withdrawing as guarantor for Nathan's mortgage, I was not abandoning him, but refusing to facilitate a situation that would have bound him closer to his abuser. This new understanding has transformed all my relationships, not just with Nathan. With Michael, I am building a partnership based on mutual support rather than self-sacrifice. With friends, I communicate my needs clearly, rather than silently resenting when they go unmet. With colleagues, I set professional boundaries that preserve my energy and focus. The permanent restraining order against Julia remains in place. According to mutual friends, she has moved to another state and begun dating someone new. I sometimes worry about this unknown person, wondering if they see the red flags I missed. But I have learned I cannot save everyone, and my energy is better spent on my own healing and helping those who seek support. Nathan has not dated since ending things with Julia. "I am getting to know myself first," he explains, when friends try to set him up. "For too long, I defined myself through my relationships. I need to figure out who Nathan is on his own terms." As for me, I am taking life one day at a time. Some mornings, I still wake up with a heaviness in my chest that has nothing to do with my healed ribs. Other days, I feel a lightness and freedom I never knew was possible. Both experiences are valid parts of my continuing journey. What I know with certainty is this: we cannot control what others do to us, but we always have a choice in how we respond. By choosing self-respect over self-sacrifice, I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. By setting boundaries instead of building walls, I created space for authentic connection rather than dependence. Sometimes the deepest love is expressed not through endless giving, but through the courage to say no more. Sometimes the greatest act of compassion is holding others accountable, rather than making excuses for their behavior. And sometimes the path to healing begins with a simple 2-word text message: done. I look at the scar on my wrist, now not as a reminder of trauma, but as evidence of my resilience. The bones broke, but they healed stronger at the fracture points. Perhaps we humans are the same way. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps others find the courage to make necessary changes in their own lives. Please like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life experiences and share with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose themselves. Thank you for listening, and remember that your worth is not determined by how much you endure, but by how much you respect yourself.